from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be with you this Monday night. We're live, we're national. Our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And happy Monday to you. I'm stoked about Monday. I'm lying. I'm not. I've got a case of the Mondays today. I got to tell you, I might become a 4-day work week advocate after today. I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. I'm not ready to give up on summer just yet. And I know we had Labor Day and we're supposed to be in campaign mode. And there's a huge debate tomorrow. Huge. But I got to tell you, I was really enjoying the weekend. So anyway, I'm thinking 4 10-hour days still gives you the 40 hours. And this way you can't make the argument that, well, you know, the problem with going to a 4-day work week is that if you do that, then you actually will want a 3-day work week. I don't think that's the case. I think we just need a third day in the weekend. You know, you got a day for church, a day for doing nothing. Then you got a day for errands, and then another day to actually do stuff. So I think that's a good deal. 3-day weekends, forever. Let's see if Trump will will sign on to that. And anyway. Some of the news, right? We got news out there. The Trump campaign is saying this is an opportunity to hold Kamala Harris accountable for the Biden-Harris record. I agree with that. And I think this is it. This is the moment. And I'm looking forward to this debate tomorrow. And we're going to talk about it as much as we can. Because I think, as I do in every debate, right? I never sell the Democrats short. They're working with a lot. Right? They've got the entire media on their side. They've got all of Hollywood entertainment on their side. So you're talking about almost everything you consume, right? Everything we all consume. News, radio, music, concerts, all of that. That's on their side. Minus, you know, the handful of artists, and it's growing, but the handful of artists that are, you know, openly conservative and that will endorse Trump or at least stay apolitical. But there's some really good people out there, like Ted Nugent and Kid Rock and Anuel AA, the reggaeton star, and others that, you know, have gotten behind Trump, and I think that's fantastic. But my thinking is, like always, she's going to do her best to continue to build her image, and part of her image is what? Joy, joy, joy. So it's going to be difficult for her, and honestly, it's not... In her attacks on Trump, she's never attacked Trump the way she attacks Biden, right? If you remember when she debated Biden, she was very harsh on him, but on several issues, like even like policy-related issues. She really doesn't go after Trump on policy issues. She goes after him on personal issues and almost tries to stay above the fray. I'm a prosecutor, and you're a felon, and you've been charged with a sex crime, and you've been this, and you've been that. Ha, ha, ha. I know your type, right? And she tries to be like the cool kid on the block. And listen, you combine that with her cackling laugh, and they call it joy by some stretch of the imagination. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see a lot of Kamala maintaining her composure, trying to goad him, trying to bait him into losing his cool and getting into a little bit of a shouting match with her, where she can say, look, this guy just doesn't have the temperament. Or, you know, the famous line that, you know, we've been hearing about all over the place from that she used on Mike Pence, excuse me, I'm speaking. Now, I don't know how much of that's going to go down, but I do know she's going to be prepared to land a few zingers on Trump. Mainly, you know, the year of felon, you botched everything. So whatever the policy is, she's going to be like, well, that's because they botched it when they were in the White House. They botched everything in Afghanistan. So when we did the bad withdrawal, well, that was their fault. You know, they were in office 5 minutes before we were on COVID, so everything that went down in COVID that was bad, we're going to blame them, and so on and so forth. So I'm prepared for some of that too. How much of that people will believe? It's always been my belief that debates are not really about the merits. They're about who's watching. So it depends on who's watching. If you have a large number of independents, and honestly, what's the probability of my opinion of Trump being swayed by something she says? 0, right? And that's the truth for most people that are voting for Trump, and the same for her. People that are voting for any Democrat, like Nancy Pelosi once said, you could be a cup of water with a D next to your name and win an election in AOC's district. And that's real. In reality, there are people that are hyper partisan or extremely focused on the issues, and they're only going to vote for what they want to vote for. And I think we have a pretty even split on that. I think so. The fight's always for those people in the middle that are like, I don't know which one I like, because they don't stand for anything. So they'll fall for anything. And those are the people you fight for in every election. That undeclared independent voter that could go in either direction. They're like, since I don't have a fundamental knowledge or care about the Constitution, I'm not standing on that. I'm standing on what do I like? I think the economy should be better, Trump, because things were better when Trump was around. But the mean tweets and the orange hair and this, and they come up with their stories, and then they'll say, but we really, in addition to the economy, we don't want to have a threat to democracy in the White House. And oh my gosh, he's a threat, right? So this is how that poorly informed voter thinks. And that's who's going to be swayed by a debate. So that's why the debate's important. And so I think for both of them, it's the same advice. They've got to continue to refine their image to that person who's never really seen them. It's like, I'm going to vote for one of these fools, and that's what I'm doing. Now, I don't think Trump's a fool, but I'm saying that's their opinion. So we'll see how that goes. I think Trump did an excellent job in his debate versus Biden. He didn't do a ton of gloating. He didn't do a ton of ridiculing. He was sharp. His retorts were sharp. They were policy-based. They were fact-based. He has a record. Why not use it? And I think he did that. And honestly, Biden was just, handing it to him. I don't think Harris is going to hand it to him. I think she's going to try and set him up. But ultimately, I think he's wise enough to know that that's coming, and he's going to handle it really well. So we're going to see how it plays out and what type of low blows, their line. When they go low, we kick them. Let's see what she tries to come up with tomorrow. Now, something else I want to get into is this poll. There's a new Newsmax poll that came out over the weekend. And I want to get to the bottom of that. And then also, we've got President Trump. President Trump was speaking at a rally. And one of the most important things I think he said in this rally was that this is going to end an era of Democrat corruption. And I think that's incredibly important. And the reason why? Because it's true. But for the 4 years that he was in office, the last 4 administrations were Democrats, right? Or 3 out of the 4. And that's a big deal when you look at that, 12 of the last 16 years. Why do you think we're in the shape we're in? And don't you think things would be a little bit worse had Trump not done what he did? We'd be in way hotter water. So I want you to listen. Trump at his rally in, let me see, where is this? Mosinee, Wisconsin.
Under the Harris-Biden regime, your government imported murderers, child predators, and serial rapists from all over the planet while weaponizing law enforcement to jail political opponents here at home. They do that, and they think it's wonderful. It's like third world country only. They loot the economy. They give trillions and trillions of dollars to their left-wing cronies while you pay the cost of rampant inflation, which is what's happened. Rampant inflation, bad energy policy, and just pouring out money like it was water. They run your country for their own power and profit while erasing your borders, assaulting your freedom, indoctrinating your children, and selling your jobs to China, Mexico, and all of these other foreign lands. But with your vote this election, their lying, cheating, thieving, hoaxing, and plotting will come to an end. It's going to come to an end.
That's El Trompito again at the rally in, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, Mosinee, Wisconsin. But he's on point. We have to end this era of corruption. And I think that's why his message is resounding with people. And in the latest, looks like a Newsmax McLaughlin Associates poll, you've got Trump leading Harris by 2 points. That's something I want to talk about, and we're going to get to it momentarily, or at least this is being reported in Newsmax. And I want to share it with you with McLaughlin, who works for Trump. He's a pollster for Trump. He's going to break it down for us. He's coming up straight ahead. Plus, I want to get his reaction to Harry Enton, who was on CNN with some stuff he had to say. He's always very informative. Don't go anywhere, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back with John McLaughlin.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
So I just want to take a look at Pennsylvania, and what we see is a tightening race in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. All right, this is Harris versus Trump margin in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. A month ago, when you looked at the polls, New York Times +4 Harris, +3 Quinnipiac for Harris, Franklin and Marshall +3 for Harris. But look at polls that have come out over the last week or so, and what do we see? We see a much tighter race. We see a tie in the CBS YouGov poll. We see a tie in the CNN SSRS poll. And this, to me, is part of an emerging pattern, which is in a very pivotal state. What we saw was a small Harris lead, but within the margin of error, becoming a race that is way, way, way too close to call at this particular point, one that is even.
That's Harry Enton, the data analyst from CNN, of all places. So CNN is saying, look, we're seeing these leads that were there, that were well within the margin of error, now begin to dissipate, and it's looking like a statistical dead heat is what I hear him saying, and too close to call. Well, I'm going to do you one better. I'm looking at Newsmax. There's a piece by Mark Swanson just on Thursday, from McLaughlin Online, a poll by John McLaughlin. Trump leads Harris by 2 points. That's a big deal, I think. Again, perhaps it's within the margin of error or not. I haven't seen the crosstabs or anything on this particular poll, but why would I need to if I can get the guy who conducted the poll to join us? John McLaughlin, pollster for President Trump. Welcome back, sir.
Hello, Rich. And by the way, that poll was done for Gingrich 360, and it was published by them. And it had Trump up 2 points, so very close to what the New York Times had Sunday, where they have Trump up 1. And, ironically, a lot of these polls, like we model ours based on the 2020 turnout of 160 million votes, and it matches up with the CNN exit polls in terms of party and ideology and age and race and all that. And So we've got President Trump up 2, which is a lot better than we saw in 2016 when they were talking about a Hillary lock, a lot better when they saw what we saw in 2020 at this point in time with the Biden blue wave. And, all these battleground states, when you go to like the Real Clear Politics average and you look at the when they have, they get rid of the toss-up states and they have like wherever it's leaning one way or the other. And Trump has 287 electoral votes to Harris's, and he needs 270 to win. And so right now it's looking a lot better for us than it did back in 2020 and back in 2016. And we're cautiously optimistic, but, we're going into this debate. And, Harris is looking 257 electoral votes, Harris 281. Trump keeps this momentum going. If he can make his points in the debate, because what we also saw in the polling was that we did a poll fairly recently for the Media Research Center, and we asked 800 Democrats and 400 Biden 2020 voters if they're aware of Kamala Harris's positions on the issues. And over 70% or more weren't. So 71% weren't aware that she was for cutting funding for the police. 73% weren't aware that she was for the Green New Deal and the auto mandates that would
That's
wipe
scary
out the
that,
auto industry.
that high of a number don't know these things.
No, and 75% didn't know that she, was most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate, more so than Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and 74% didn't know that she didn't consider it a crime to be in the U.S. illegally. She was 77% not aware she was for abolishing ICE. 81% were not aware she wanted to eliminate private health insurance. And what we're seeing is as people learn her positions. I mean, I saw something tonight where CNN was talking about how she favored allowing illegals come in and be eligible for free transgender surgery. I mean, it's like on the American taxpayers. It's incredible. And then at the same time, they're not aware of her tax plan where she wants to raise the corporate tax that'll be passed on to consumers. She wants to raise the capital gains tax from 20% to 45%.
Just to go back in there, I think those are huge. Yeah. But the raising the corporate tax rate to 28%, I was debating this with somebody yesterday at a family party, and they were like, "Oh, but they're only going to do that to the billionaires." And I was like, "Where do you get that information from? They're doing that to everybody."
No, it's part of this. What's amazing is that the Media Research Center, which is nonpartisan, did a study, the coverage that she got from the time she was handpicked by Biden on the 21st through August, and she had 84% positive coverage. Trump had 89% negative coverage. And what's interesting is ABC, that's hosting the debate tomorrow night, they've given Kamala Harris 100% positive coverage and Trump 93% negative coverage. So,
wow.
In spite of
John,
all,
let me ask you something real fast. I'd hate to cut you off, but we're going to hit the clock real soon. I hear what you're saying. In spite of all the coverage, they're still doing their thing here, and people don't know these issues. But what would you say are the top two issues? From what I get from people calling the show, it's immigration and the economy. Is that still current, or has it changed?
No, it's absolutely. It's the economy, specifically inflation, cost of living. If you go to the food store every day, if you try to buy gas, if you're trying to heat your home, if you're trying to afford a mortgage, that's the top issue, followed by immigration, because now you've got a crime wave across the country of illegal immigrants. And, it's ironically in that Gingrich survey, we're still getting 18% of the African-American vote, and we're winning 41% of the Hispanic vote, which is much higher than the 32% that Trump got in the last election. So,
wow.
So, yeah, right. So it's like...
Got to keep our foot on the gas over here.
Yep. We got to keep exposed. Look, you were better off when Trump was president 4 years ago. And do you want 4 more years of Joe Biden's vice president continuing the same policies? I don't think so. And that's a challenge for President Trump to make that clear tomorrow night.
Absolutely. John McLaughlin, I want to thank you for being here. Let everybody know how they could find you, your website, your social media handle.
The website is McLaughlinonline.com. And so that's McLaughlinonline.com. And that poll is up there, too. And the X is JMCLGHLM.
Outstanding, brother. Thank you for making the time to be here. Keep up the great work and Godspeed. Folks, we come back. There's a big study that just came out. It's reported New York Times, The Guardian, CNN. Teen girls' brains aged rapidly during the pandemic. We're going to talk about that and more when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue the conversation, and listen to this. This is being reported all over the place. Looking at the New York Times, The Guardian UK, all these radical right-wing tabloids, and even CNN. And Here's the headline. Study shows how the pandemic may have affected teen brains, causing them to age prematurely. Interesting, right? Numerous studies are documenting reports of issues with mental health, social lives, and more. This new study is now suggesting that these phenomena cause some adolescents' brains to age faster than they normally would. 4.2 years faster in girls. Just imagine that, having a 14-year-old, and because of the pandemic or perhaps the vaccine, that now your girl's 18 years old. That's crazy. And 1.4 years faster in boys on average, according to the study published today in the journal known as Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Now, by being the first to contribute details on aging differences by sex, the study adds to the existing body of knowledge provided by two previous studies on the COVID-19 pandemic, which dealt with accelerated brain aging amongst adolescents. Here's a quote from it. The findings are an important wake-up call about the fragility of the teenage brain. Wow. Was anybody asleep about the fragility of the teenage brain? But anyway, this was according to the senior study author, Dr. Patricia Kuhl, and she's working for the Bezos Family Foundation. And let me see what else we've got here. She finished off by saying, teens need our support now more than ever. I agree with that. Being that I think at the time of COVID, I had two teenagers. I had a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old. Now they've since aged, and according to this, even more mentally. But this mental aging is just one of the problems that came about from COVID, the related vaccine, the pandemic overall. As the study just mentioned, there was a lot of other psychosocial issues that arose from this, and ultimately, now we're finding out the truth about the vaccine, that when it was given to people that were outside of the most dangerous or the most the group with the most comorbidities, like morbidly obese or elderly people, those people had some pretty severe side effects. And this thing is now known, and even within that group. But my contention was always, I don't think young people need this thing, unless you're going to die because you don't get it. Some people ended up dying because they got it. And this is why they stopped the AstraZeneca vaccine, from what I see, in Europe, because people were getting blood clots and it caused problems. So I want to get to the bottom of this because, I'm not a scientist. I don't play one on television or on the radio. So we've got our expert tonight that's going to weigh in on this. Dr. James Thorp, board-certified obstetrician, gynecologist, and maternal fetal physician with over 45 years of experience in this. And he's got a book called Sacrifice, How the Deadliest Vaccine in History Targeted the Most Vulnerable. Dr. Thorp, welcome to our program.
Rich Valdez, thank you so much for hosting me on your illustrious platform.
Oh, my gosh. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and you have great diction and a broad vocabulary. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It's very kind. Now, what do you think of this article I was just citing about this study in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences?
Well, it's really interesting that you bring this up because I published that over a year ago. And
nice.
What I did was I used the governmental database, CDC, FDA, and VAERS, right? So this is not Jim Thorp's data or anybody else's data. This is the data of our government system pushing these dangerous, injurious vaccines in the most vulnerable populations, including children and my patients, pregnant women, preborns, and newborns. Here's what I did. I used the protocol of the FDA exactly as they require, and I compared three different groupings: cognitive or intellectual deficits, number one; a myriad, a half a dozen of psychiatric illnesses, number two; and the third, either suicidal ideation or suicide itself.
Wow.
So when you take those three groups, take the intellectual, cognitive issues, there was a stunning breach of the FDA safety signal when comparing the novel COVID-19 vaccines to just the influenza vaccine that's been used for 30 years, or all other vaccines combined. There was a massive danger signal in just 3.5 years of the COVID-19 vaccine. So clearly, there's a very strong association and breach of the safety signal for cognitive issues in all comers, including all ages. And so the exact same can be said for the cadre of psychiatric illnesses. And number three, the exact same thing can be said for suicide and suicidal ideation.
That's alarming. It's beyond concerning. But what I'm wondering is, this study's talking about the result of the pandemic. You're talking about the result of the vaccine. I can tell you that I've seen, and I'm just a layman and I'm speaking anecdotally, I've seen people suffer from the vaccine. People like in my immediate circle, and others that were like, I'm not taking that thing, that didn't suffer the same way. So I'm led to believe that the vaccine is what's causing these injurious effects that you mentioned, not so much the pandemic overall. And I'm not absolving the pandemic, but I think when they just say pandemic, I feel like it's almost misleading. Maybe that's just me being a skeptic. What say you?
I think you're 100% accurate. Listen, Rich, this was known 12 years ago. Sladlik and colleagues in Sweden, they documented that the lipid nanoparticles, breached one of the most significant blood barriers in the human body. That's a blood-ovarian barrier. Lipid nanoparticles were designed to go through every God-made barrier in the human being: the blood-brain barrier, the blood-testis barrier, the blood-placental barrier, all the barriers. That's why they were created. This was proven in 2012, where the vaccine or lipid nanoparticles were concentrated in the ovaries. Okay, so we knew that coming into this 12 years ago. This was an experimental, planned rollout of a new platform that never, ever should have been used in this situation. And then they purposefully, really fraudulently, put the emergency use authorization in place by really criminally demonizing very safe and effective drugs that could have treated it easily and now are proven to be effective, such as hydroxychloroquine, such as ivermectin, such as budesonide, and many, many more.
Wow. Makes a lot of sense now why Sweden did what they did. I thought they were just being judicious and, having some insight here. Again, now I know what the insight was. They knew about this stuff for a dozen years. Wow. That's something I didn't know. And I've talked to Malone and Bhattacharya and a lot of people about this, but I didn't know that tidbit. So that's really good to know. Folks, we're on with Dr. James Thorp, board-certified physician, 45 years experience with moms and babies and pregnant women. And it's a very delicate population. And he's got a book called Sacrifice: How the Deadliest Vaccine in History Targeted the Most Vulnerable. We're going to continue our conversation with him. And I'm going to bring up a clip from Bill Gates, who speaks so flippantly about these pandemics. I want you to hear that. We'll get his reaction to that, and we'll continue learning about his book. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The cost of being ready for the next pandemic is not super large. It's not like climate change where, 10 trillion, 20 trillion, these are big numbers. Global surveillance capability would cost like $1 billion a year. The R&D that we need to do to get magic vaccines and diagnostics and therapeutics, that's less than $100 billion over the next decade. So, if we're rational, yes, the next time we'll catch it early and it won't go global like it did this time.
Yeah. I understand he's rich and he goes back and forth with Trump and Zuckerberg and the other guys on being the richest guy ever. But The way this man talks, we could do this. We could do global surveillance for this much money. We can do the way he throws his money around is just so bizarre to me. And the idea of having global surveillance and making it sound like it's so easy to do, that's scary to me. The fact that we can do that. He didn't say, using global health data that we've collected from X, Y, and Z. He said global surveillance, which, again, maybe that's just the term they use, but it doesn't sound good to me. Now, I want to get the reaction to Bill Gates saying this. And again, this is a year or two ago at the Munich Security Conference. So it's post-pandemic. And again, he's seemingly, trying to be a good guy, right? Bill Gates, he wants to save the world. We can get ahead of this if we do this, and do global surveillance. Dr. James Thorp, board certified OBGYN, 45 years experience. He's the only one that I know, the only maternal fetal health physician that has taken this position that these shots can kill unborn babies. And he's here to weigh in on this, and we're going to talk about his book, Sacrifice, How the Deadliest Vaccine in History Targeted the Most Vulnerable. Doc, what do you think about Bill Gates here?
Well, I think Bill Gates needs to be put in front of a Nuremberg 2 trial, and he needs to be punished to the fullest extent of the law, and that would include Klaus Schwab, that would include Fauci, and that would include the former, many former United States politicians. Yes, this was a planned global fifth-generation bioweapons warfare that has killed 17 million global citizens. As of 2 years ago, by the way, that's a large underestimate now,
yeah.
and injured 33.4 times that. That's the injured to kill ratio proven by Pfizer. So that's just 2 years ago, killed and injured 585 million global citizens. So this is the most egregious, catastrophic, planned rollout of death in the history of the world.
Doc, it's a good thing you're in the baby delivery business, because if you were in the vaccine business, after a statement like that, they might be upset with you.
Well, they've been upset at me. Listen, I have all the goods. I'm extensively published. I'm with a research team with a crack attorney. We published almost 25 articles on the America Out Loud platform. Listen, this was planned. This was planned to target women of reproductive age, human reproduction, pregnant women, and preborns. And I can prove that, and you will come to conclude that when you read the book. And by the way, I'm taking no profit from this book, not one penny. Every single penny of profit will be donated to a 501c3 fund solely to support those citizens that have been, whose family members have been killed and injured by this bioweapon. So please read that book. Listen, the data is in the 5 most reliable, many consider irrefutable studies document that the vaccine was lethal in pregnancy. And why do people consider those 5 studies irrefutable? Simply, 3 of them are from the U.S. government, CDC, VAERS database, and the other 2 are from Pfizer.
Unbelievable. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here. I get it. I understand how corruption in government works. I worked in government, and I talk about this every day. But it's still a wow moment for me to think, how do we get away with this? How do these guys get rich hand over fist, owning these patents, getting royalties, just continually pumping this out while there's, I'm going to call you guys good guys like you that were sounding the alarm, and you were, I don't know if you were silenced, but I know some of your colleagues that were out there saying very similar and other things about this, they were silenced. And how did we get to this fascistic place?
It's horrible because as my research team proved, in a Freedom of Information Act request, the HHS and CDC paid millions of dollars to capture the controller, the medical organization, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, that controls 60,000 OBGYN doctors, and basically stated in September 27th, 2021, if you deviate from the draconian narratives which we got paid off to push,
that they would take away your board certification
and your state licenses.
Wow.
So,
So I had doctors call the show before I was on this show. I was on a different show, and people were calling, and they were like, "Look, I'm a doctor. I can't give you my name, and I can't say this publicly, but I got a letter saying that they would take my board certification away if I didn't do X, Y, and Z." But what you just said, crazy.
Well, and it's not just the physicians; it's the medical journals. It's the board, the board certification agencies. It's the faith leaders of every church. It's all the hospitals. Do you realize, Rich, that $186 billion was used in early 2021 to bribe over, listen to this, 420,000 hospital systems and clinics in the United States of America? And they were paid with the same COVID-19 cooperative agreement that the American College of OBGYN got. That's why I was fired a year ago as the #1 producer, the most senior, the most published in my division of maternal fetal medicine at SSM Health, St. Louis University in St. Louis. And they didn't want to let me go, but they took $306.9 million. They signed that what I call the covenant with death, and it's secret. They try to keep it secret, but if they didn't fire me, and they lauded me, they praised me as a model physician of the system, but if they didn't fire me, they would have had to pay that money back.
Unbelievable. Doc, stand by right there. We're going to come right back and give people all the information about how they get a copy of the book. Folks, we're coming right back with Dr. James Thorp, board-certified obstetrician, came out against this stuff. His book, Sacrifice, the Deadliest Vaccine in History, targeted how the deadliest vaccine in history targeted the most vulnerable. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue and wrap our conversation with Dr. James Thorp. He was one of the rare few doctors from the maternal fetal medicine realm who publicly protested the COVID shots as directly deadly to unborn babies and his patients. And he witnessed the carnage on a daily basis firsthand. He's been talking about it with me all night. He documented it, published it in papers, and he's got a book that everybody needs to get 2 copies of, and he's not making a penny off the book. It's called Sacrifice, How the Deadliest Vaccine in History Targeted the Most Vulnerable. Dr. James Thorp, let everybody know how they can follow your work and how they get a copy of the book, or 2.
Yes, it is currently in pre-publication, and it's being, you can buy it through Barnes & Noble, also Amazon, and also the publisher Skyhorse. Listen, this was a pre-planned, the COVID-19 vaccination was a pre-planned 5th-generation bioweapon of depopulation targeting women of reproductive age, human reproductive future generations, and pregnant women, preborns, and newborns, the most vulnerable of our population.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Make sure you check him out. Pre-order the book. Get a copy for yourself, 1 to give away. Dr. James Thorp, I want to thank you for being here. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, sir.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Hope to have you back soon. And, folks, we continue our conversation. We're going to continue talking about what this Hamas war looks like through the eyes of an Israeli commando, an officer at that. Stick around. We're coming right back with a captain from the IDF.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? Rich Valdez here, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you. Hour number 2 of our broadcast, Monday night. We are live and national. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And we're going to get into a bunch of things. We've had some good conversations so far. We're going to have some more interesting conversation. Of course, at the top of the next hour, hour number 3, it's Open Phone America, where you get to weigh in on absolutely anything. And of course, if you want to speak with our guests, we're live. So you feel free to call in. 833-4-Valdez is the number. Now, let's see. I want to get to a couple of things. Obviously, big debate tomorrow. El Trompito is going to face off against Kamala Harris. I can't wait for it. I say my handicapping says he wins this thing hands down by remaining calm and staying focused on the big issues like the border and the economy. And she's going to be desperate to try to ridicule him. And it's what she's done thus far. And I think we're going to get more of the same. So I think she probably has 1 or 2, maybe 3 canned responses where she's going to try and land a glove on him. But for the most part, I think his record is going to do the talking, and he's going to win the rest of it. But we will see how it unfolds. We'll be bringing you coverage of that all night tomorrow night. I think it's scheduled to end as of 10:30 or around that time. So as we have the end of it, we'll bring you a little bit in the beginning. We will definitely get into that tomorrow, and we're going to have an all-star cast of people weighing in on that stuff as well. So keep it locked right here for our continuing coverage, election coverage of the this first debate between El Trompito and Kamala Harris. Now, I want to talk about a few things. Trump was on the campaign trail. He threatened 100% tariffs on certain countries that want to ditch the U.S. dollar. Now, this is a departure from my friends in the QAnon camp that say that Trump is going to jump on board with the BRICS movement and take over it, make it the U.S. BRICS currency. I said no when I heard it the first time, and now he's saying no, absolutely not. You will be tariffed because he's going to protect the U.S. dollar. That's obviously what we're here to do. We're not here to bring things down. This is not a controlled demolition. He's here trying to build America, make it great again, not destroy it and rebuild it. That would be insane. But I know there's some people out there to think that. What else we got here? We still, as of tomorrow, there will be a debate between Kamala Harris, who's done one sit-down interview with her emotional support human known as Tiananmen Tim Walz. But you know what she hasn't done? She hasn't done a press conference where she takes multiple questions from various members of the media. Isn't that something? They're actually not even letting people into this debate other than a handful of reporters and staffers and whatnot. So that's disappointing, to say the least. Let's see. Some immigration news. I'll get to that in a moment. And the big story that we've been talking about, we talked about it with John McLaughlin a little while ago. 100% of ABC's Harris coverage is positive. 93% of the Trump coverage in the media has been negative. That's according to a report that just came out, a study from the MRC, the Media Research Center. So with that being said, that's what's going on. Now, the drama in the Middle East continues. And, of course, I hold Joe El Baboso Biden and Kamala Harris responsible for this because we didn't have those problems when Trump was in office. And this continues to get, in my opinion, gets worse and worse because you have hostages. We just had 6 hostages die the other day. So there's a lot going on that shouldn't be going on, in my opinion. And I think we need to really take a look at this. So I want to take a look at it through someone who's there, right? We've got an IDF, Israeli Reserve Commando. He's an officer, Captain Elkana Cohen. Captain, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Rich, for having me.
I thank you for being live on the phone from Israel. Now, Captain John Kirby gave a statement today. I want you to listen to what he had to say.
Administration officials have said that after the 6 hostages were killed earlier this month that Hamas changed the terms of the deal. Did Hamas explicitly tell mediators that there are new terms, that they want more prisoners released? And would you still characterize negotiations as on the verge of a ceasefire and hostage deal?
To your first question, yes, Hamas did change some of the terms of the exchange, and that has made it more difficult for us to get there. I'm sorry, your second question was?
Would you still characterize the deal as on the verge?
We still believe that even for the new amendments that Hamas has made, that it's still worth an effort to try to see if we can't get back into a ceasefire negotiation, but we're not there right now.
Captain Elkana Cohen, when you hear John Kirby say that they're still working on a ceasefire, they've been working on it forever, Hamas has never agreed, and if they agree, it's for 5 seconds, and then they renege on it. Do you have any hope that this will actually happen?
First of all, we always hope to bring back our sisters and brothers still holding captivity, but to be honest, I can't trust Hamas. Those people just brutally murdered thousands of people on October 7th, and last week was a reminder for the savages that they are when they brutally murdered those 6 innocent people that were held in captivity for 330 days. I just want to mention their names because it's important for me that everyone will know them. Their names was Ori Danino, Carmel Gat, Alexander Levanov, Almog Sarusi, Eden Yerushalmi, and Hersh Goldberg Pauling. Those 6 innocent people were dancing in a festival music and got kidnapped by those terrorists. It just insane outrages. And then people, as you just mentioned before, want us to do ceasefire. Well, we can't trust those people who just show their attention over and over again, that they only wish it's to wipe out the state of Israel.
And this is, it's been abundantly clear. And for those who have never heard it, it's really an awakening. Some years ago, I remember first hearing a parliamentary session open up in Iran where they started chanting quite happily, that death to America, death to Israel. They know us as the great Satan and the little Satan. And I thought, wow, we can have differences with a lot of countries in America. But one thing I've never seen in the United States, and honestly, I've never seen it anywhere else, is members of their parliament, openly calling for the destruction of an entire state, or 2 in this instance. And I realized you really can't negotiate with someone who's calling to end your existence and has made many attempts to bring that to pass, like they did on October 7th. And you've written a book, October 7th, The War Against Hamas Through the Eyes of an Israeli Commando Officer. This is, I think, a very revealing look at what's going on. So I'd like you to take some time, as you're with us, to kind of walk us through what you've seen, what people can expect in the book, and really help us to understand what it's like when you're on the ground in Israel.
Yeah, thank you. So before that, I'll speak a little bit about my book. I want the audience to understand, your listeners. I'm a personal trainer. More than that, I'm an expecting father, a newlywed.
Oh, congratulations.
A student. Thank you very much. And the last thing that I want to do is to participate in war. Me or my wife or most of my friends, we didn't choose this war. We forced to fight for our people. And this is a just war because we understand that we have to fight for our people, for our existence, and to make sure that nothing like that will ever happen again. And the reason why I decided to publish my journal is to allow people to understand what we're dealing with through this complex war, which is complex just in terms of an army fight, because it's in an urban place, and we have it's different that way. But it is very simple, easy war from the ideology, because here it's good against evil. It's the people who want life, who's supporting life, against the people who valuing death. And on October 7th, I slept in my in-laws. It was a holiday, And me and my wife slept there. And 5:30 in the morning, my wife woke me up. She was terrified. It was an hour before everything started. And she told me that she had a nightmare, which hundreds of terrorists were chasing us. And I couldn't use my gun in order to defend herself. I hugged her back and I told her, Shiran, don't worry. Nothing will happen. I even smiled a little bit. And then we went back to sleep. An hour later, I was awakened by the Iron Dome system that were activated from the shooting rockets from Gaza towards Israel.
Wow. Now, how often did you have that occurrence where you would hear the Iron Dome activated? I know that rocket attacks are somewhat frequent in Israel, lamentably.
Yeah, so as you just mentioned, once in a while we do hear sirens and we do get attacked, but most of the time it's not coming out of nowhere. Of course, not in holidays, and also not in the center of Israel. Unfortunately, at the south or at the north, we usually hear that more often. We all, they're trying to attack more often. But in the center of Israel, it's more rare. So on October 7th, because the fact that it was in the middle of a holiday, I realized that time that we started a war. Like, we got attacked by Hamas. So I ran into my house. I opened my phone. I called my commander, and I tried to realize what's going on. He told me, Elkana, prepare your equipment. Make sure to prepare yourself. And while me hanging up the phone call, I get another phone call of my friends from my unit, Duvdevan. This is my unit. And the one, if some of your listeners watched Fauda on Netflix, this series based on my unit. So he called me and told me, Elkana, Shiran also got called up. Shiran is my wife, which I met in my unit, in my base.
Oh, wow.
So I understood that time that me and my wife getting called up on the same time. But I can tell you that no question, no hesitation. We knew exactly what we needed to do. This is our mission, to protect our country. Even though we're not on our active duty, we're just a reserve. But here, we understood that we are in some serious fights going on in the south, and we both drove together to the base. And this is how this day started for me.
Wow. Folks, we're on with Captain Elkana Cohen, a.k.a. Kuno, and he's an Israeli Commando Officer in the IDF, and giving us a breakdown of his journal, which was published as a book, October 7th, The War Against Hamas Through the Eyes of an Israeli Commando Officer. Stick with us. We're coming right back with Captain Elkana Cohen.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who, again, will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with Captain Elkana Cohen, Israeli Defense Forces Reserve Commando Officer. And Captain Cohen was at home with his wife, enjoying life, when she had a nightmare. She was awakened from her sleep with the nightmare of terrorists attacking them and them not able to defend themselves. And then in real life, the air raid sirens went off. The Iron Dome was activated. There was an attack in the south. And he and his wife, who's also a reservist in the IDF, were activated and called for duty. They drove to their base. Captain Cohen, continue.
Thank you. I know that we don't have a lot of time, so let me just jump into the time when I went into Gaza, into the Gaza Strip, because it's important for me that people will understand what we're dealing with through this war. One of the time, we got an intelligence about a school that was full with infrastructure used for terror. But we also knew that school was full with civilians. So as we always do, we start calling them all out, but no one left the area. So we used the drone in order to scan that school from above to understand why they're still there, why they're not evacuating themselves. And then we saw that there is Hamas guards inside that school that didn't let those civilians to leave the area. But we also saw that there was one kid, 5-year-old kid, I assume he was, tried to run away, and the Hamas guard shot him in his head and killed him in front of his mom.
Wow.
Because he knew that if these kids will run away and the entire civilians will leave the area, we will be able to conquer that school. But because we don't want to put civilians in between terrorists and our forces,
right,
we won't fight until they all will be evacuated. So we understood that moment that we have to kill those guards for our sake, but also for the Palestinian sake, also for those civilians. And one of the Hamas guard went on the rooftop, and he was holding a baby just in front of us. He knew exactly what we were, and he was holding the best shield that he could ever ask. Use our morality against us. A baby human shield. Behind them was a guy that was holding a camera and waited for us to take that shot.
Wow, right. So they could say that you're killing babies and you're doing all this crazy. Now, I tell you, they've perfected warfare against you. They really have, in the most ugly way.
We didn't take that shot. We didn't take that shot because we didn't put babies in between our cause, and we make sure that we're not killing any civilians. So we didn't take that shot, and unlike those savages who brutally murdered babies, old people, kidnapped people from a festival music, and slaughter people in their beds while some of them were celebrating the holiday. So we didn't take that shot, even though we put our life on the line that time, because we knew exactly what we were. We could aim any RPG, missile, sniper that they had towards us. But we didn't take that shot. Later on, the same guy went on the rooftop again. He was surrounded by a group of women. One of them bent a little bit, but it was enough for our sniper to take the shot and to eliminate the threat. And I'm sharing that because I want people to realize what's truly going on.
Right.
What we're dealing with, and how many times I put my life on the line. I put my friends' life on the line in order to avoid any casualties, while we can still hear those people who criticizing the IDF, who protest against us, while we fighting a just war to bring 101 hostages that still hold in captivity by the hand of Hamas.
Unbelievable. Captain Elkana Cohen is our guest, and he's the author of the book, October 7th, The War Against Hamas Through the Eyes of an Israeli Commando Officer. Captain Kuno, I want to thank you for being with us, brother. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to participate in your program.
Thank you. Hope to have you back soon, and good luck with the book. Godspeed to you. Folks, we continue the program. More to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And you guys remember last week when we heard from Merrick Garland saying that Russia is interfering in the election. Remember this?
We know that Russia is not the only foreign power seeking to interfere in our elections. As the U.S. intelligence community noted 2 weeks ago, we have observed increasingly aggressive Iranian activity during this election cycle. That includes recently reported activities by Iran to compromise former President Trump's campaign.
That is, again, Merrick Garland. Now, on the heels of that, you get Vladimir Putin that decides to weigh in on this and say that ultimately Trump wasn't very friendly with him and those sanctions messed him up. And he was happy to go with Joe Biden as his endorsement. And since Biden pulled out and said to go with Harris, he decided to go with Harris. Then he jokes about it and says, plus, I like her laugh. She must be filled with joy, or something to that effect. Listen to this through an interpreter.
If we can name a favorite candidate, it used to be Joe Biden, but now he is not participating in the election campaign, and he recommended all his allies to support Ms. Harris. So that is what we are going to do. So it was, well, he said that we should, that is why we should also do that. Well, her laugh, she's laughing, her laugh is so fascinating. It means that everything is good, and if everything is good, it means that, for instance, if we're speaking about Joe Biden, there are so many sanctions against Russia introduced, and if everything is good with Ms. Harris, maybe she'll refrain herself from such measures, or maybe she'll change them. So in the end, it will be the choice of the U.S. people, and we will respect this choice.
That is, again, Vladimir Putin. Basically, again, saying in Russian that he was happy to go with Kamala Harris because Biden was better than Trump for him. And, of course, he made millions, right, on his oil deals and whatnot, which he didn't make under Trump. And he said, well, since Biden said to go with her, I'll go with her. And then he made the joke about the laugh. So I want to get a reaction to this from a former Defense Intelligence Agency clandestine operative turned CEO of a health company, Adam Hardage. And he's going to weigh in on this because I think it's a very interesting thing to see Putin weighing in. Half the time I think he's trolling us. Adam Hardage, welcome.
How you doing, Rich? Good.
I'm doing
good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, brother. I do. I appreciate you staying up late with us. And when you hear Putin and you hear Merrick Garland say these things, I take everything with a grain of salt from these people because I feel like Putin is everybody's favorite bad guy, but one of my favorite bad guys too, right? I'm not necessarily a pro-Putin patriot, but I think sometimes they might be putting more things on his plate than are due. He does enough dirt on his own. What do you make of this endorsement?
Yeah, I just kind of feel like it's the old go-to. Everybody tries to heap far too much blame on the Russia plate, if you will. And I think, the situation that we're looking at right now, it's pretty obvious that President Putin is trolling the world globally, and it's really not a good look at all for the United States.
It's
mocking. This is one that I think it is a joke, and I think everybody can see it and the world knows it. And the thing that really irritates me is that everybody knows it's a joke, and even the people running the show know that it's a joke, and they know that we know that it's a joke. Yet they still keep doing it the same way. So
what do you think ultimately happens here, though? Because I think there's a grain of truth to that the sanctions that Trump put in place were more difficult, and the sanctions that Biden's put in place, I'm going to say they kind of backfired because, it just, the whole thing didn't work. The bombing of the pipeline, all of this and that, the guy ends up selling more oil than he ever did.
Well, it's Putin was obviously very tongue-in-cheek about that, but it's actually a very disturbing thing if Kamala Harris were actually installed as president, and I say installed intentionally because that's kind of what we're looking at. We witnessed, in essence, a palace coup. As soon as they tried to assassinate the former president, they missed him, and not 24 hours later, miraculously, the sitting president then was actively removed, resigned via a tweet. But he didn't really resign office, just resigned the campaign, but was going to stay in office, but maybe he's not fit enough to run a campaign, but he's fit enough to serve as commander-in-chief. So none of that makes any sense. I think what we have witnessed already is a palace coup that's unfolding. I don't know she will be successful, with the powers that be trying to get her into the office. But there's no way that you can say somebody who was so unpopular that they were forced to drop out of their own presidential race because they couldn't even get 1% of interested voters in her own party.
Yeah, right, from their own party in a primary.
Right, in a primary. But then they're going to come out and they're going to try and explain to us, no, really, she is more popular nationally because we say she is. So now we're into some really dangerous territory. This is the kind of stuff that Herman Goebbels would be really proud of. You've never seen information warfare, exhibited on a level like this anywhere. It's and it becomes very difficult. The gaslighting is so continuous, so overwhelming, so constant that it becomes very difficult to actually understand the truth and to believe what you know to be true, because you're constantly being told that what you are seeing is not real.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, Adam Hardage, you served as a clandestine operative for Defense Intelligence Agency. And was this the type of work you were doing on behalf of the United States, as much as you can tell us, doing this type of thing, helping to sway and swing elections in other countries for people that were favorable to our policy? Or did you do something else?
No, I was never involved in any of that kind of work, mostly because defense would imply, majority focus is that. It's going to be focused on issues pertaining to, how do we protect Americans? How do we, further American objectives? How do we, let's say, for example, there's a new submarine or something that people need to know about. Maybe there's a way that we're going to be looking at getting information on that. So it's really... the kind of work that I used to do was not focused politically, because we're more focused on actual operational military issues. And during most of my time was in a post 9/11 world. So very heavily focused on the Middle East, North Africa, parts of the world, and obviously 20-something years later, and it took us that long to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. So I'm not really sure we've done a real bang-up job ever since we stopped trying to win wars after World War II.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Folks, we're on with Adam Hardage. He's CEO of Remote Health Solutions, former clandestine government operative, and discussing Putin's endorsement of Kamala Harris, the latest on Ukraine, and this... just his opinion on the Russian information, disinformation, and attempt to swing the election. We're going to continue that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, the day that you welcome me to your show is a happy day for me. And I hope that America appreciates what you're doing, because you're fighting a good fight.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue. I want to get into a little bit of how this plays out geopolitically with the Russians and their conflict, which is ongoing. And I just think, I guess forever wars are a thing now for everybody, not just the United States. Let's bring our guest back. He's the CEO of Remote Health Solutions, but he was a clandestine government operative for Defense Intelligence Agency. And Adam Hardage, when we analyze this, or at least when you take a look at this, where do you land on what's going on with Ukraine? Some people say they're winning, others say they're not. They seized some land from the Russians. There was some rocket attack that killed a lot of people recently. There's a big volley of back and forth that's constantly going on, but yet another conflict that seems like there's no off-ramp in sight.
Yeah, I come down pretty squarely on this one against the United States position in this conflict for a few reasons. And if your audience would just indulge me real quick, I would just say let's go back to when Bush Jr. was president, and they started playing around, poking. The U.S. started kind of poking its nose towards Georgia, and Putin said basically, hey, or Russia said basically, don't do it. You guys mess with it, we're going to take it. And we did, and they did. And then the same thing happened under Obama in Crimea, and the U.S. started poking its nose around, started messing around. And
what you're referring to is our involvement with like the Maiden Square and like putting our preferred politicians in office.
Well, it's not just that, but then so NATO has relentlessly pursued this expansion towards Russia, and so but NATO made a deal, made a promise many times over, which we have broken, and I'm not trying to be an apologist for Russia or anything. What I'm saying is, if America is going to make commitments, it needs to stand by them. And if you look at what's happening in Ukraine, this war was completely avoidable. It is only happening because in 2014, under President Obama, there was a coup, which apparently the United States was allegedly responsible for. I personally have no information on that whatsoever. But I mean, everything that I've seen to date stands to reason that there is some truth to that U.S. foreign policy was dictated in such a way to where we wanted a war between Russia and Ukraine. That's at least the way it looks from my cheap seats. And I don't think.
What's the benefit of it? Is it land? Is it to interfere with the pipeline? What's the benefit?
Well, I think the real politic aspect of this is an area that I'm not personally one that's super well versed in because I'm not that Machiavellian. But it seems to be that old adage of, as long as you're bleeding and I'm not, that's better. I don't know if it's as cold and calculating as that. From a risk, sort of chessboard standpoint, I don't know at that national level. I like to hope not, but right. I probably think otherwise.
Right, and I think there's always an element of the, and I'll say the United States getting influenced by our own military-industrial complex that is always in the search for a conflict. And part of the reason I'm partial to President Trump is because I think he figured a way to satisfy that, where he grew the military, gave plenty of budget dollars to the direction of the military-industrial complex, and didn't start a conflict. And I thought, what a great compromise! Have a solid military, very Reagan-esque in many ways, and not have to use it. I feel like the Democrats, they want to do the same thing to feed the military-industrial complex, but they're willing to use it as well.
Well, it's a good observation, and I like to say, if we're looking at this, if you're trying to just look at Ukraine, Russia, understand what is that even about? Why does it matter to the U.S.? What is happening there? Not only was the situation, I think, completely avoidable, it seems to me that the flames are continually stoked by the warmongers on, frankly, both the right and the left inside the United States government. It's become this uniparty neocon warmongering thing, and then you've got the few people out there that actually want peace, which is Trump, RFK Jr., and then the American people. You've got this perma-state that just seems to want endless war, and it's just, there's no end. But I can understand why, let's say an Obama, Biden administration might want to have a war in Ukraine to protect assets, or let's say, the $1 billion deal that they got the prosecutor fired for looking into his son, or maybe because of the board positions that Hunter had on Ukrainian holdings and other things like that. So maybe there's some personal interest there, which I would completely understand why they would, kill 600,000 Ukrainian men in order to protect their little fiefdom. But I don't know why Russia would take that deal and fight back or invade Ukraine, so to speak, unless it was for some other strategic objective.
Now, what do you make of Putin's comments in this? He put together this document like 5 years ago, and it was like a 500-page document. And in his own words, he basically said that he wanted to restore what was known as the, I think it was called the Russian, not the Russian Federation, but the Russian, anyways, an original footprint of Russia, which included Georgia and all of these places to kind of reclaim their territory. And those are his words. Do you take him at his word, or do you think he's full of it?
I'm not a Russian guy. I should tell your listeners, because I've never been to Russia. I don't speak Russian. I didn't study Eurasian politics or Russian affairs. So I don't want somebody to be like, oh, this guy's a bozo. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I would say common sense and everything I have personally seen in my experience to date as a 50-year-old man tells me that Putin is not an expansionist, that he is contained to a sense in that very real thing where it says, hey, this is my body. I want my body to be whole. I understand that philosophy completely. Not only that, but if you think about Russia, it's very isolated. They have very limited access to warm ports of water. They have limited. So, they don't want the enemy, like literally perched on its, on its front porch, looking in the windows going, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? It's like, hey, man, can you leave us alone for a minute? So it's there's this funny meme that I saw. It shows a picture of Iran, and then circling Iran, it shows all the U.S. military bases and stuff, and it says, why does Iran keep putting its country so close to our bases?
Right. And that's a realistic thing. I don't mean to interrupt, but I got to take a quick pause right here. We'll come back, wrap up that thought, and I got one final question for you. Folks, we're on with Adam Hardage, and we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We wrap up with Adam Hardage, former clandestine government operative. And Adam Hardage, for the sake of time, I'm going to jump right into my question, is that during, I guess it was the late 80s into the 90s, the United States signed the Budapest Memorandum of Security Assurances, where we said to Ukraine, denuclearize and we will have your back. And I don't know that we have their back. What do you think of that?
I'll put it this way in my answer, and I know we're short on time. From what I understand, back in 2018, I think it was 2018, they were going to stop the war. Everything was going to be fine. And then apparently Boris Johnson walked in and made him stop the stopping and keep fighting.
Well, we'll have to leave it there. Adam Hardage, thank you, brother, for being with us. I appreciate perspective and your service to the country. Godspeed to you, sir. Folks, we come back with Open Phone America. You get to weigh in on everything under the sun. 833-4VALDEZ. Open Phone America starts now. I'm Rich Valdez.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. Hour number 3 underway. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number if you want to join me, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And we're a day away from the big debate between El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, and Kamala Harris. And what is interesting to me is that, you know, the rhetoric is going all over the place. We're in the heat and the thick of it with election season upon us. And over the weekend, President Trump was on the campaign trail. He was in Mosinee, right? I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Mosinee, Mosinee. I've never been to Mosinee, Wisconsin, so forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, and I'd probably mispronounce it on purpose. It's kind of my shtick. But he's at the campaign rally there, MAGA rally, and he says that the Department of Justice wants to throw him in jail for exposing their corruption. And I got to tell you, I think he's 100% right. Listen to this.
Biden DOJ is trying to throw me in jail. They want me in jail for the crime of exposing their corruption. We expose their corruption. They go after the people that expose, not the people that do the corruption. The big news this week was that the Manhattan DA witch hunt against me has been postponed because everyone realizes that there's no case because I did nothing wrong. Political witch hunt. It's a political attack against me by Comrade Kamala Harris and Sleepy Joe and other radical left opponents for the purpose of election interference. This is all it is. My whole life, I never had anything. Now, all of a sudden, I got so many cases. Who's indicting me today? Does anybody have any?
You got to love that. He takes it all in stride. I love it. I think it's terrific because, I mean, how else would anybody withstand? Anyway, I want to unpack that a little bit, and because clearly this has been a big focus of the Democrats trying to weaken Trump. So think about this. This is a man that they have impeached twice. One time, he wasn't even president anymore. Then four different investigations, right? 4 different felony criminal trials. 91 felony counts that he's being charged with. He gets found guilty on 30 some odd of them. And one of these things, all of these cases are rather contrived. I think every single one of them was outside of the statute of limitations, or at least the majority of them. And they've done all of this. Convicted felon. The judge in the E. Jean Carroll case says, look, we know that you did not rape this woman. Okay, great. But because you called her ugly in the process, you defamed her, and we're considering that sexual harassment. So you're found guilty of some sort of sexual battery. I mean, what kind of contortions are they playing here with the words? Saying a woman is ugly and she's not my type and she's lying? That sounds like a defense to me, not some sort of battery charge that you're going to get. But that's what they did. And he was found guilty of that. He had to pay millions of dollars as a result of it in that civil suit. Now, whatever the case is, now they want to be able to say and label him and say, sir, you are convicted of sexual battery. You're a sexual assaulter or batterer. You are a convicted felon. You are this and you are that. And I realize I'm preaching to the choir here, but these are crazy things. It's a crazy notion that they're literally trying to tar and feather the guy by way of the media, by way of lawfare, these fake, phony fraud cases against him in court. Unbelievable. And with all of that done, notwithstanding that, he's still neck and neck with Kamala Harris, who they're praising from the rooftops as being the best thing since sliced bread. She's fantastic. Don't worry about inflation. She's got this, right? Just because she caused inflation doesn't mean she won't help bring it down. I mean, really. It's the stuff dreams are made of here. So I think that Trump is going to do really well tomorrow when he has a chance to defend himself, when people get to hear directly from him, and he can say, hey, look, let me set the record straight a little bit. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts on this are, because we're going to get into that and a couple of other things I want to get into tonight. We also spoke about what the outcome was of this new study on COVID. Right. And they're positioning the study as a study on the pandemic and the results of the pandemic. But our guest weighed in that he thinks that it's more likely the result of the vaccination, which he labels the deadliest vaccination ever. And that was a very, very interesting conversation that we had earlier this evening with Dr. Thorp. And if you want to weigh in on that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Then we also had a conversation with an Israeli commando who is on the ground in Gaza and gave us some play-by-play that I'd never heard before about, some of the raids he'd done on buildings containing hostages and civilians. And really, really eye-opening conversation. We talked about Russia with a former clandestine government operative. And, of course, we talked about the latest polls that got El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, Donald J. Trump, the 45th president of these United States. He's up by 2 points against Harris. And things have leveled off since last week. Over the weekend, new polls that came out showed the Harris lead that was within the margin of error flattening out, with Trump with a lead now that's within the margin of error. But again, that's still four active lawsuits that are against him, a couple of convictions. Just amazing to me what they've thrown at this guy, and he's beating her by 2 points on the latest poll. So that, I think, is just a testament to what people really think about what's going on and what they think of Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States. So let me see what we got here. I did not go into this. So as I try to pull up the call screen, I'm going to give you the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And we're going to get to your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. Rich Valdez here with you live till 1 a.m. Eastern time, taking your calls live. 833-4-Valdez is the phone number. And the great one, Mark Levin, he, as you know, he's a friend and he's a mentor of mine. I worked for him for a number of years as an associate producer, a.k.a. Mr. Call Screener, Richie V. And he took a spill over the weekend. He's fine. He's well. But he was headed into surgery, and I just wanted to wish him well for a torn muscle in his leg, a torn quad. Unbelievably painful. Reading it hurt me. So Godspeed to the great one, and speedy healing to him. And I appreciate those of you that are praying for him as well. Anyway, I want to continue to somebody who didn't fare as well as Levin is faring. James Earl Jones has gone to be with the Lord, passed away. He's dead at age 93. We've got a report from Steve Patterson at NBC. Check this out.
James Earl Jones was born in rural Mississippi in 1931, raised by his mother and his grandparents. As a child, he developed a debilitating stutter.
You never get over it, really. You simply learn how to work around it,
A high school teacher helped Jones find his confidence and his voice. He fell in love with the stage at the University of Michigan and debuted on Broadway in 1957.
Just on a block and then keeping him off me.
His breakthrough Tony-winning performance came as boxing champ Jack Johnson in The Great White Hope, which was later turned into a movie.
Because every time you push that pinched-up face in front of me, I see where it done got me.
As his movie career grew, he continued acting on the small screen. The first celebrity guest on Sesame Street.
I am your father.
But it was a 2.5-hour voiceover session for George Lucas that changed his life.
So he hires a guy born in Mississippi, raised in Michigan, who stutters. And that's the voice, and that's me. I lucked out.
The role propelled him, or at least his voice, to worldwide fame as Darth Vader in Star Wars. For the next 40 years, he excelled on stage, winning a second Tony Award.
James Earl Jones.
And on the big screen, a Navy admiral in The Hunt for Red October.
And I was never here.
In The Lion King.
You are more than what you have become.
The voice of a network.
This is CNN.
And the voice of all baseball fans in Field of Dreams.
People will come, Ray. People will most definitely come.
He received an honorary Academy Award, had a Broadway theater named for him, became a Kennedy Center honoree, continuing to work in new projects, and revisiting classic roles.
I'm only brave when I have to be. May I have your attention, please?
On screen and in life, James Earl Jones was a king.
The goal wasn't to be a billionaire or to be a Hollywood star, to be a part of good storytelling. The goal was about that.
I found you!
He found his voice, and we got a legend. Steve Patterson, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Well, R.I.P. to James Earl Jones, a real legend in everything he did. The guy's voice was just incredibly iconic. And part of the report, they said he was a king, and he was. I believe he was the king of Zamunda in the movie Coming to America, one of my absolute favorite films of all time, with Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall and, of course, James Earl Jones. And he was, let me see, what else? Yeah, and then Coming to America Part 2, which came out a million years later, just recently, I think last year or the year before. Absolutely one of my faves. Another one of my faves from that era, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He's not in that one, but those are got to be two of my favorite movies ever. Anyway, rest in peace, James Earl Jones, quite a talent. And, I mean, you heard Darth Vader. Come on. Just absolutely amazing. So we continue. We continue with our discussion with you, all the American people. I want to go to Aurora, Illinois, where they're listening on WLS. Let's check in with Jason. What's up, my man? You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Mr. Valdez. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Likewise. Thank you, sir. What's on your mind tonight?
I have wonder. The administration that we have in office right now sold 5 prisoners from Iran back to America for $6 billion. What is to stop Hamas from selling 5 prisoners that they have now to Iran for $1 billion in weapons?
Yeah, nothing.
And then
nothing's going to stop them.
And then Hamas, and then Iran telling us, "Hey, we want another $6 billion."
Yeah, listen, it's a perpetual cycle that could totally happen. I think the only thing that might stop that from happening is the fact that they'd have to get them out of Iran and smuggle them out, right? And the IDF is pretty formidable. And the Jordanians are not necessarily on board. Egypt is not on board, right? So everybody that's kind of in the area that's bordering Gaza there, I don't think is going to allow them to just start trafficking hostages that would put them in harm's way. So I think that might be one deterrent. I think another deterrent is simply, really, that's it. It's the same deterrent, right? A, the neighbors aren't going to play ball, I don't think. And B, it's going to be hard to do with the IDF watching. We had a Israeli Commando on before, Capt. Elkana, and he was sharing that, they sat on a building for hours in order to take out the guard that they had on top of the building. And every time he came out, one time he came out with a baby, the next time he came out surrounded by women, and he was using multiple human shields until one woman bent over, leaving an opening. Their sniper took the shot, and they took the guy out. So I think they're on it. They're on it. They've got their eyes peeled. They're focused on this. But to your point, this is what they want to do, right? They want to be able to amass power and negotiating ability and bargaining chips for Iran. That's what they're here to do. And they're going to keep doing it unless they're stopped in their tracks. So you got to give credit to Netanyahu and the IDF and the Israeli people overall for doing what they do to make sure that this doesn't become, the norm, and that they don't continue this proliferation of hostages or murder of hostages and everything else that we're seeing. It's just horrible coming out of Gaza. So that's my thought on that, Jason.
This isn't a Palestinian versus American war. This is Palestinians need to stand up and say Hamas is not representing us. And I've talked to people who live in Iran, and most of them don't agree with what their government is doing. And most of us don't agree with what our government is doing. And that's why we need to put a Republican back in office.
Yeah, listen, I see the math you're doing, and I think it makes sense. It's not fuzzy at all. I agree with you. Every Iranian I've ever met fled Iran because they didn't agree with the mullahs. They don't agree with Ayatollah. This is just a thing, and most of the people there are just stuck. And I used to say I don't understand why people stay in bad situations, and I had the privilege of working with, he just recently retired from a university I used to work for, Pillar College in New Jersey, a guy named Dr. Ralph Grant. This guy is a veteran politician, former city council member, city council president in the city of Newark, New Jersey, a Democrat, who understands everything. I mean, he was there. He's seen corruption. He's been involved in a case with respect to that. He was involved in ministry. He's helped countless people. He's somebody I respect highly. And he was part of the civil rights movement. And again, we don't even agree on a lot of things politically, but we agreed on a lot of other things. And the guy has a lot to offer, and he's in his 90s and a lot of wisdom. And I once asked him, I said, Dr. Grant, you were out there with Dr. King and, not necessarily all the time, but they had traveled in similar circles and were part of the civil rights movement. And I said, why is it that we have so many people that won't try to advance despite all the work that you did? And because I just couldn't imagine people being held down by racism that way. And he used the analogy of one of the strongest animals God ever made, the horse. And he said, you ever wonder why you're able to tether a horse to a plastic resin yard chair that weighs 1.5 pounds and that horse won't move? Because they're conditioned to believe they can't. And it dawned on me. It's why it took me forever to stop eating fast food. It's why I believe a ton of things that I shouldn't believe, right? And I thought, man, that's very real. And that's what we're seeing in America. A lot of apathy, a lot of people conditioned to think a certain way and afraid to think outside of the box. Jason in Aurora, Illinois, listening on WLS. Thank you for the call, my friend. I appreciate it. Folks, your calls and more are coming up. Don't go anywhere. 833-4-VALDEZ. I am Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I was told in no uncertain terms by the government that if we hired anyone who is not a permanent resident of the United States, had to have either a green card or a citizen, that I would go to prison. Because the presumption if somebody is not a permanent resident is that they will leave the United States and take the rocket technology from SpaceX to potentially to countries that would cause harm to the United States. pretty, solid reasoning, I think. A few years ago, the Biden administration decided to sue SpaceX for failing to hire asylum seekers. So we're told on the one side that if we hire anyone who's not a permanent resident, we go to prison. Now we're told if we don't hire asylum seekers who are not people who've been granted asylum, seekers, they aspire to asylum, they're therefore not a permanent resident, but if we don't hire them, we also go to prison. So, I mean, that seemed to be insane and unfair. And why did the Biden administration, of all the injustices that occur, pick this as one of their biggest cases?
That's Elon Musk and a file clip that we pulled out of the vault because he's the one tech CEO out there that's really calling it like it is, and he's blowing the lid off of a lot of things. We've seen so much censorship coming from the tech companies. You've got Zuckerberg that's out there now saying that, oh, no, look, he blames everything on the government. He's, oh, well, the government made me do it. The government made me do it. But the government didn't make him invest $400 million in the 2020 election to create these, in my opinion, fraudulent drop boxes that they created and controlled. And he did it anyway. Now he says he's not in it. We had a clip of that we played. And he says, look, one thing I've learned, I'm not getting involved. And he said it was pretty badass that Trump got shot in the ear, and this is like a big deal. And look, I get it, and I understand that the pop culture appeal of it. But there's more to that, right? I mean, Trump, they really tried to kill the guy. And but for the grace of God, there go I, as how the Apostle Paul said it. That's the truth for Trump. Had he not moved his head just slightly, I don't know how many degrees of an angle that is, but whatever amount of degrees to the head tilt that he did saved his life. Grazed his ear, could have taken his head off. I don't know if you ever seen a bullet from an AR-15, but it's a 9mm, right? It's a 5.56 round. It's a bigger bullet, and it just boggles the mind that when Kennedy was killed, I wasn't around, but we still talk about that. We still talk about Reagan and the attempted assassination of Reagan. We talk about lots of these big stories, but not so much about Trump. It's become a thing of, that we want to forget almost. And I don't mean that intentionally. I mean, that's what the tech companies are doing. Tech companies are censoring so much of what's going on, or at least trying to control the narrative where it's not a huge topic of conversation. And Google got caught out there when people started, getting screen grabs of them searching for Trump assassination attempt, and it would just go to favorable articles on Kamala Harris. So what's the story with these tech companies and the people that are leading them? I don't know, but I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's go to the phones, 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. And I want to go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to KDKA, America's oldest radio station in continuous use. Let's check in with Brody. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank goodness I'm not that old. You're a gentleman and patriot and a scholar, sir.
Thank you, Brody.
And you follow good shoes with Mark Levin. All the best to him, too.
Thank you.
If fascism ever comes to America, it will come in the name of liberalism. That is what Ronald Reagan has said. And I believe that the tech industry and Google and Alexa, who should I vote for? Well, they fixed that glitch.
Yeah, thank God.
I just every day I get up and I go on my phone, my Android device, and there's just all the CNN comes up first, negativity about Donald Trump. It's just unbelievable. So how do you feel about that? It's just, maybe it has to do with algorithms and the tech industry trying to stack the stack the cards in the wrong way. How could we defeat something like this? We do have freedom of speech, but this is not gonna help.
Well, here's what I think, Brody. I don't think the answer, I mean, it may be a simple idea, but I don't think it's an easy solution. And by that, I mean, look, I think we have a very unique problem in what you just mentioned. We have an industry that predominantly leans to the left. And not just like, we're liberals. No. I'm talking about the progressive left, like people that embrace communism. Now, I'm going back years now. Twitter's been around, I think, since 2009. When Jack Dorsey was there, James O'Keefe, Project Veritas at the time, now he's with O'Keefe Media Group, but at the time, James O'Keefe had done a undercover investigation, had some people with hidden cameras interviewing people that worked at Twitter HQ and was asking them what's going on. That's how we learned the term shadow ban. Before that, nobody knew what a shadow ban was. It was O'Keefe's reporting that popularized this. And when James did this stuff, a lot of things were revealed. They were talking about how, one guy was even on the record. He's like, look, most of us here are communists. He said it. We are communists. And, we just don't believe in a lot of that stuff. And we kind of need the company to make money so that we don't all lose our jobs one day. But because we're all communists, we get it, and it was fascinating to listen to. Because just imagine, it's difficult for a communist to survive in the United States. We still have, by many accounts, a free market. Some will argue it's not free, and they say, okay, that's fine. We can have the debate. I'm not going to, it's free enough, right? It's free enough in my opinion. And ultimately, communists don't like this system. Right now, if you're a Chinese-style communist, then you might like the system because you use a ton of capitalism to fuel your communism. And this is the modern-day communism that China is experiencing, where they're buying up, they're being very capitalistic and buying up as much of the resources that people can mine that they can do whatever they're going to do with, sell, or mainly just dominate the market, right? So China's dominating the market on gold right now. They're buying more gold than anybody else because they want to get it to a point where you can't mine gold unless you're mining it from a mine they own. They've done this with cobalt. They've done it with lithium and nickel. They're trying to corner the market, and they have cornered the market on electric vehicle batteries. So I think their intention was to push the political part of this through their influence operation to get the United States to be all green all the time. But it's backfiring. Why? Because most people that make electric cars are sitting on these cars. And a lot of people don't want them like they thought we're going to want them, even with incentives, even with tax breaks and all this other stuff they've got going on. So ultimately, how do we fight this? I think we fight it by looking at Elon Musk. Elon Musk said, you know what? I'm going to fight this by buying Twitter. Trump said, I'm going to fight this by running for president. I'm going to open up my own social media called Truth Social, and I'm going to fight back that way. And that's the way to do it. Now, yes, that may mean that Brody in Pittsburgh and Rich Valdez in New York don't have the ability to buy Twitter or to start a brand new social media platform with millions of users. That's a fact. That's true. We'll have to find a different way for you and I to make our impact, maybe patronizing those products, making sure that Truth Social and X get the usage that they need to remain relevant as a platform. But ultimately, those that have money, we've got to pray for these people. We've got to pray for them to have courage. We have to encourage them to get involved and not think that they're going to lose every fight they get into, but that they could potentially win every fight they get into and get into more of these challenges and push back on the status quo so that we don't have an incredibly left-leaning tech industry where, every last person's like Mark Cuban instead of having some nuance like Mr. Wonderful or like Donald Trump. And I think that's what we need. We need more options and more nuance, more diversity. They claim to be diverse, but it's a very not diverse situation in Silicon Valley, right? Everybody seems to think the same way for the most part. So I think that's part of the issue there. And you're right. These are algorithms that they set up to intentionally skew things. And they're doing it with polls and they're doing it with a number of things. So I think the only way we fight back is to support Rumble, support Truth Social, support the platforms that we know are reporting the truth, and stick with it and get other people to listen and to watch and grow from there. That's all I got, Brody, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. God bless you, brother. Folks, we're coming right back. Your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, to the phones we go. Let's go to Wolf giving us a call from Pleasant View, Tennessee, streaming us, richvaldez.com. Wolf, go right ahead.
Hey, Mr. Valdez with an S. It's a privilege to be on your show. Thank you for taking my call.
Likewise, the privilege is mine.
You brought up so much here in about the last 30 minutes that makes this phone call relevant. Now, my name is Wolf Braxton, and I'm a music artist. And I've put out a song. It's called Shot. And this song covers a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, religious, political persecution, the Kennedy assassination, and how we need, God to help us. And, so I'm glad you brought up big tech censorship, because I really feel like YouTube is censoring and suppressing this video that I've put out.
Well, I don't doubt it, Wolf. I don't doubt it at all. I will tell you this. I've been on YouTube for many years. I've never really put much effort into it, but I can tell you, I don't put much effort into any of my social media, and you could see that by the low number of followers that I have. I don't put a lot of content out. I'm not very active. But I will say this. They do it to me, too. I remember I signed up for Truth Social, I don't know, during its beta phase. And in that beta phase till now, I think I have something 70-some-odd thousand followers. I've been on Twitter since 2009. I have half of that. Been on Instagram for a long time. A fraction of that. Same as Facebook. It's so difficult. Matter of fact, somebody commented and said, hey, I heard you on the radio. I really liked your show. I want to follow your Facebook page. And when I went, it took me 20 minutes to find it because it's buried and it was very difficult to find. And it doesn't surprise me. I get notifications from Meta, Facebook, from Instagram, constantly telling me that I've shared some sort of something that they don't agree with, which is not even my own original ideas. I'm usually just sharing an article from a news website, and they'll count that as what they consider something that has been fact-checked and is lacking in context. And they will go ahead and censor that. And the other day I checked, it's like some special mailbox there, and it had 37 flagged posts. All stuff that I shared, not like stuff that I posted original content for myself. And I thought, how do you get ahead like this? 37 dings against you. It's only a matter of time before they tell me, sorry, you can't share anything on the platform anymore. The warning I got said that they were not that people may not see what I'm posting. So that means they're telling me that I'm being banned in distribution, or at least limited in distribution. So I can only imagine you make a song called Shot that's about all these different things, touching upon these delicate, sensitive areas. Guess what? They're going to censor it. Makes sense to me. This is what they do. And it's kind of like we're playing in their pond, in their backyard. So anybody listening, I encourage you to check out Wolf Braxton's music. I've never seen it. I don't know it. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying for the sake of being nosy and hearing him on the radio, you could say, hey, I want to check it out. I want to see what this guy's talking about. And if you like it, like it. If you don't, you don't. I'm going to check it out later if I get a chance. But Wolf, I want to thanks for the call. And I agree with you. I'm pretty sure they are doing that. If you're taking a position similar to the ones I take, I think they're extra mad at me because they're like, man, you're a Puerto Rican kid from Brooklyn. You should know better, right? You should be on the other side. And I just don't think things work that way, and I don't play that game. Wolf, thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. Now, I want to also bring your attention to some audio we've got, but I'm going to take a pause right here, and plus we've got calls from, we got calls from Missouri, Ohio, and Idaho, and I want to try to get to everybody tonight. So 833-4-VALDEZ is the number, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue with our wrap-up here. It's going to be the speed round momentarily, but a quick tidbit. Today, a million years ago, in 1776, the Second Continental Congress officially changed the new American nation's name from United Colonies to United States. That happened on September 9th, 1776. So kudos to them. By the way, Elon Musk, we were just talking about him. He is on track to be the world's first trillionaire. How about that? And here's the craziest one of all. And I should have talked about this hours ago. Maybe we'll do a whole open phones on this tomorrow and add a few things in. But South Korea has seen the sales of dog strollers outpace the rate of sales for child strollers because their birth rate has been plunging. Imagine that. Strollers for little doggies are outpacing the sales of strollers for human babies. Wow. That's a tough headline for me. I really didn't believe that, but that's a thing. Anyway, I want to get to your calls. I know you guys want to talk about Hamas and hostages and Putin and everything else. Let's go to Chuck, Ridgeland, Missouri. KWTO. Go right ahead.
Hi, how you doing?
Wonderful.
Hey, I love your show.
Thank you.
I was, there's an October surprise probably coming, and I was thinking, and I've been trying to communicate this to the Trump folks.
Yep.
But if Trump and J.D. Vance and even Elon Musk put their heads together and start pushing for this new administration in the White House, would push for the Convention of States.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. The Convention of States is a good idea, and probably our only hope, honestly, I think, for getting to so many of the solutions that could really help America because of constitutional limitations that we have. You got to use this method to get there. Not an easy one, but we've had Mark Meckler on a couple of times on this program. He's the head of Convention of States. And it is a good idea. It's one that I think would work should we be able to get there where you have enough states to actually have these conventions, the convention, right? And bring about the change that's necessary. I don't know that we're there. I know that we're not there now, or otherwise we would have done it. But there's no harm in trying to get there. And just imagine if we could, have a convention of states. That would be fantastic. Thank you for the call, Chuck. I appreciate it. Call back anytime. Always a pleasure to speak with our listeners in Ridgeland, Missouri, KWTO. And let us continue. Let's go to Debbie, Akron, Ohio, WNIR. Debbie, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I got a couple things. Leon Musk, as Trump called him, that would kind of be bad, but whatever. Also, Putin is a troll. He's trolling all of America. Why should we listen to him at all?
I don't listen to him.
He's trolling us, saying he's endorsing Kamala. I like to say it the way you do it. I love the way you say her name.
Kamala Harris.
Kind of cute. But he's a troll. That's all I got to say.
Oh,
and we should not
Debbie.
be paying attention to him.
I agree with you 100%. I try not to pay attention. You got to hear what he has to say, but he's definitely a troll, and he's mocking America as he's doing it, and that's spot on. My buddy Paulie in Boise, KBFI, shout out to you. We'll get to you tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll try and get you to the top of the list. And folks, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.